Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz, Shauketaly.
And jolly good morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And this morning we are graced on our set by the Secretary to His Excellency the President, and we have here Mr. Austin Fernando. Very good morning to you, Mr. Fernando.
Very good morning to you.
And it's lovely having you on our set.
Thank you.
And thank you for taking time out. Now then, obviously we'll get rid of the first question, shall we?
Yes, yes.
You're looking very good for somebody who's so young.
Yeah, I'm 76 years young.
Are you?
Yeah,
Goodness me. I thought you were about 60.
Thank you.
Now then, that's we got the first part of the question out of the way. Let's go to the easier one, shall we?
Yes.
Well, what's happening in Sri Lanka today?
Yeah.
Why is it all colourblified?
I think this colourblification, as I permitted to use that term, all this troublesome situation has arisen after a small road accident.
A road rage thing.
Yeah, road rage, road accident and a road rage after. And that has spread over to other areas of activity in the country. So therefore, there are some difficult situations that are faced by the people, faced by the government, faced by the community at large.
But, Mr. Fernando, a road rage incident doesn't end up in emergency regulations and so on. Not usually anyway.
Yes.
So what does our intelligence services say?
I will not be able to share what intelligence services say all the time. It's not fair by them.
No, that's true.
And then the general understanding we have on this matter is that this situation has escalated due to various other things happening in between.
Right.
I presume our understanding is that there are certain parties who could be motivating some of these incidents.
Right.
And then and some of the tools we have to propagate that type of situation into a worse situation than normal had taken a very higher step, and then that has created a lot of problems. And it is not an issue that had been an immediate result of the road rage. This had been developing a little bit earlier also for a few years. Some sort of antipathy towards certain groups had been taking place in the country, and this type of situation escalates the thing, and it increases the volume of the thing, and that is why the situation went out of hand also in certain areas, not in every area. But that doesn't mean that it will remain only in such isolated area where it happened. It can lead to other areas also, which we feel is happening also in a very minute way at the moment.
Right.
So therefore we thought that to be on the safe side of our actions, that we should have the emergency regulations which covers the whole country.
So you're saying that you're not decided to err on the side of caution?
Yeah, I think it's something like this. When things happen in this manner, you cannot be very silent and be very easygoing on this type of situation. So therefore, it has to be looked at a long range or wider range situation.
In your years and years of service in public service, SLAs, have you found that there are some instances and situations where leaders must act decisively and incisively like that?
Yes. I think it all depends on the size of the issue.
Right.
I remember when I was government agent in Polonnaruwa, there was a similar case where there's a village called Palliodalla, which is a Muslim area. where those people were not allowed to come out of that place to a place called Diyasenpura to even buy their rations.
Right.
So at that time it was the government agent who walked in. But sometimes the member of parliament who was there at that time, he was not tolerated. And others, even the divisional secretary, those AGAs, he was not, he couldn't do that. So he came and told me, and I went there. And I faced it. And the people listened to me, and we sorted out. So it all depends at what level who should get involved. So there the government agent got involved, but the AGA could not be getting involved. But the political authority, the member of parliament of the area was not tolerated. So it all depends on the situation where that arises.
Right. And so these, what you call in between, road rage victim incident to what we have now, in between, obviously these elements for cheap and narrow political gain.
Yeah, that could be. I think if I'm to be very frank, I feel that there is some sort of a influence that is being brought on the people to react onto these situations.
Now there's lots of questions here. One says here, what are the plans of the government to stop extremism?
That's not a situation that arises only in this particular isolated incident at Kaldini and in Digana. It's a national issue where it cannot be done only by the government. The government is a very important component of the whole process. It has to be done by the religious leaders, the clergy, the Mahanayakas, the cardinal, the Maulavis and the Hindu people and any other person who is interested in it. The civil society as a whole. And then the media has a role to play, and very important role to play, because they are the people who get to the people's ears and eyes all the time. Then even the artists, dramatists, everybody has a role to play. So it's not only one particular unit in the system that can do that. It has to be done by a lot of people getting together. And that's something where the leadership should work. The political leadership, the religious leadership, the media leadership, all those people should get together and act towards wiping out extremism from the country.
In your SLAS business, let me call it, at SLAS, you are now at at what level are you? What grade is this? Are there
people, when they want to introduce me to some other person, they say he's the highest level public officer.
What is that grade?
Because that's a most senior public officer. They
is that grade 1 or grade? Is that it works the other way?
More than even supra grade of SLAs.
Okay. So, at what age can you
retire?
No. At what age can you? A 30-year-old or a 35-year-old. What grade can that person reach?
Usually people come to this stage after about 30 years of service, generally, more than 30 years usually.
Right.
Very rarely you will find a person who will come from somewhere just coming out.
Why is that?
It all depends
on... Is there a lack
on...
of leadership?
No. The selection to be appointed as a secretary usually takes place when a person has put in at least about 20 years or 25 years of service.
Right.
Then you come along
so you could be, technically you could be around 50.
To become a secretary? Yeah. About 55, somewhere there.
Right.
But I became a secretary when I was 44.
There you are. You see, you were young then.
You must ask, you should have asked the question from His Excellency President Jayajawad, and I don't know why.
Right.
I think they picked me up for...
But there are lots of young people. They must be frustrated that people, with all due respect to you and to your age and your experience, there must be people there who say, well, I can do that job. Why can't I get there? And they must be frustrated.
Yeah, there should be definitely.
Is there a lacuna in leadership?
No, I think it's the post of secretary is not a thing on seniority or on. It should be really on ability and the capacity of a person.
Yeah.
So the way how we evaluate the capacity of a person in this country, in the public service, is a little bit different from the private sector.
I see. Okay, your presence here on the program is obviously exciting people, because the questions are coming in. Peace-loving citizens expected that the police should be given to Sarat Fonseca. Why doesn't it work? That's one question. And are race-based and race-specific political parties encouraging extremism? I think that's a good question.
Yeah, first question about Field Marshal Sarat Fonseca, who had been a friend of mine for a long number of years. Now, that is a matter completely in the hands of the President and Prime Minister.
You got nothing to do with it?
Nothing to do with me. They decide, and the Constitution says, on the recommendation and on consultation with the Prime Minister, the President will appoint.
They have their reasons.
So that's their business, and it's not my business.
That's right. Good. Well, what about this view? What's your viewpoint on? Is there a need for race-based political parties?
Once again, I'm a public servant. I should not comment on the constitution of political parties. Don't you think so? It's not fair.
No.
Because all these party leaders
let you get away with that.
Thank you.
Right. But what are the figures like? You've got pieces of paper here. How bad is it, or how not so bad is it, the situation? We'll just call it the situation, shall we? Yeah,
I think the situation, to my understanding, to my knowledge, up to yesterday, there had been about 65-70 people who have been arrested on this matter, and yesterday there would have been more, because the real implementation of the emergency regulations came into being from yesterday, because it was published the day before night, and it came out in print only yesterday, and then therefore it had been distributed among the police and the army and all the military people and the government agents and all these people. So the action had been more active, I think I should say. There would have been more numbers, but I had no time to be checking it up today in the morning, what happened during the last 24 hours. So there would have been definitely more people being taken to custody, more people taken for questioning, more people will be taken to courts. That will happen. That is one. Then the other thing is, there had been incidents I have saw in your TV and even in the newspapers. I found that there had been cases of violence that had created a lot of damage to business places, houses, vehicles, and things like that, and life also sometimes, and then injured and some people. So definitely those people have to be compensated, because it is none of their business to have got involved, got affected like that. So therefore there should be some sort of compensation that has to be worked out, and it had been happening even otherwise, even previously it had been happening, and then it had to happen. Yes.
I'm a bit of a skeptic when it comes to this word compensation, because the government appears to almost always quickly jump off the bandwagon, and the word compensation rolls out their tongues very quickly, and then it stops. That's the problem. I want to really, I know that you won't have all these, and because of the nature of our program, I haven't told you exactly what I'm going to ask you, and that's the way it is. We don't plan these things like in that to that depth. But what we do want to know is, how is this compensation program going? What about those people from Shalava, from the landslides and so many disasters? The garbage dump that fell on some unfortunate people, and so on and so forth. Everywhere we talk about compensation. What about the people in the north, the former conflict areas? Various people waiting for compensation. To me, there appears to be an ambience of slowness. Why is that?
Yeah, I agree with you that the compensation systems, the reparations, have not been carried out perfectly, shall I say? And there's nothing perfect in this world. And
no, that's true.
Therefore,
but that's a bit of a cliche. You know, the people who are suffering are still suffering.
They demand. But for example, we have in the budget of the national budget, we have monies which have been spent. I'm talking about the northern people and the eastern people especially. There is money which have been voted, and there are systems that have been placed, but then sometimes it becomes the payments become get delayed. The reason being, sometimes you say, to take the case of a land and a house which have been affected by bombing or by blasting by somebody, or a house that have been affected by in the landslide areas. It may be a house that have been wiped out due to landslide. Now some of these places, people have to be sometimes relocated in some area because that particular place is not the best place, and sometimes it may not be possible to be given the same land and the same house and all that. So there are schemes that have been evolved by the government. Various ministries have evolved things, so therefore we have to give that type of very set type of assistance has to be given. Now when people are, I know some areas in the north, when some land is offered, they say we don't want this land. So therefore we have to get some land. Then when we try to get some land, there are certain other legal problems. People go to courts and block what we try to do. So there are sometimes delays like that. Sometimes it's just true, there are administrative delays where people don't get the service as fast as they require. That is another point of view. Thirdly, in cases where certain areas where there have been non-governmental organizations and the international non-governmental organizations have gone and helped them out. So therefore they have been looked after. So I don't say there's perfectness in the whole thing, but at the same time we are trying our best. The government agents are trying our best, especially in the north. They are doing their best. And sometimes the military is supporting. I know in one place, military built up something like 100 or 150 houses in some area. And sometimes when the military tries to build up houses, some politician will come and say, no, we don't want the military to get involved, because that's the political concept they have. So there are certain difficulties which we face, and this have to be addressed.
Let's talk a little bit more of these efforts on the part of government to resolve compensation issues just after this break. Don't go away. After all, this is Newsline.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz. Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.
And welcome back, and we are in the company of Mr. Austin Fernando, the Presidential Secretary. Now then, we were talking about compensation, and of course the proper word would be reparations.
Yes.
Tell me, I'm still not so convinced, Mr. Fernando, that our people, my brothers and my sisters, as in Sri Lankans, that Sri Lanka is not pulling its finger out fast enough. It's a bit slow.
What has been complained of against the government by various people, by sometimes the affected people, sometimes spokespersons for the affected people, various civil society organizations, and even the internationals. Now we went to Geneva and agreed to have some reparation system somewhere in 2015. Then we were working on it. Now the government appointed a committee that I headed it as when I was governor of Eastern Province. I headed that committee where we had some lawyers, some people, late Namsivayam Padmanathan, who was the repair chairman, and all of us were in that committee. And we prepared a document which was more or less, we call it a concept paper, but the concept paper was more a legal document than a concept paper. We prepared it and we had to discuss this matter, because when we do this, we have to be considering a lot of things where people are, say, one ministry or one secretary will take up some issues and all that. So finally we went to cabinet. I think last week or the previous week it went to the cabinet, and I was told day for yesterday or somebody told me that it had been decided by the cabinet to approve the concept and the document which we prepared from the working group headed by me. And it has gone to the cabinet. It has been approved to be taken up with the legal draftman and to go to Parliament. And once it is approved, then we have a legal system based on it. All these times we have had administrative systems that are working on it, or a cabinet decision only. But hereafter we will have a legal system working on it.
Mr. Fernando, I had the fortune, I suppose, of going to the north about, I don't know, 6 months ago, former conflict areas.
Yeah, yeah.
And it struck me, whilst I was on the ground, that, 8 years after the end of the so-called war, end of terrorism, that it was really grossly unacceptable to see fellow citizens of this country walking around in threadbare clothes, living in takarang sheds, for want of a better word, and whose lot in life was as bad as it could ever get. And yet we have people in cabinet and so on arguing about plastic houses, steel houses, bricks and mortar houses, wooden houses, God knows what houses. Come on, can't they get real and deliver? What this country needs is delivery. We're tired of all the talking. Don't you suffer from that same frustration as a fellow Sri Lankan?
Yes, I think I have the same feeling about some of the things that have been happening. For example, housing. You have a problem of steel houses,
all sorts of houses,
bottle and dome houses,
yeah.
NHDA type of houses, and various issues are there. But I think we have done some thousands of houses in that area. But this difficulty
of 137,000.
Yeah, I know that. So the money has been approved and the organizations are there. But there's delay. I am not happy with the delay that has taken place.
Yeah.
But at the same time, don't forget, if you had gone there, I have been there before 2009 also, I have been there, even during wartime I have been there.
I went there a couple of weeks after the ceasefire agreement was signed by the current Prime Minister.
Now, had you gone to Shauketaly at that time, I had been there, because after signing the agreement, we visited Shauketaly on the same day, and then the next day, I think. So when we went there, the houses were in shambles. But now what is Shauketaly? What is Jaffna town? What is any other area? But at the same time, I agree that there are certain areas where it has not been developed to that extent. But you must understand that there had not been much of money going there to the northern eastern area, which had started trickling in now. Now, for example, I know that His Excellency the President wanted 25 small tanks to be developed in the area, in the northern area. He has selected them, he has got the money. Really, he has put 500 million rupees from some money which was there in some other area. We have transferred it to be developed in that area. So, likewise, we have to do it.
But what, okay. I'll contact you in 3 months' time and I'll ask you again. But, don't you detect that there are various political parties, and obviously there's aspirations of everywhere, but don't you detect from the people, when you look at the results of elections and so on, don't you detect that people are not satisfied with, or apparently not satisfied with leadership? Because you can see that a new party all of a sudden comes in and the people have voted for that party. It's a protest sort of thing. They're saying, listen you guys, you're in power and you're not doing enough. But if there was a leadership, for example, let's take the United National Party, right? We've had one leader and so on, and it's like back to my old question about the SLS and the age thing. Here we have a leader who's obviously he's not past it, but he's not young, is he? He's not spring chicken now. But why can't there be? What can be done to bring the younger people up, and they in turn might inspire the people to turn out in greater numbers and participate better in the electoral and the political process?
I think the political parties should look at their own constitutions and make available opportunities for younger generation to come up, and that had been a bane in our system.
Have you read the Constitution of the United National Party?
I have not read it.
No, I don't suppose you would in your line of work, but they've got to be removed by Jayaratnes or Brahmins that's the only time the change can happen, because there's no.
I don't want to be commenting on.
No, I know that, but do you know what I'm trying to say is that most of these people have archaic regulations. That it's so archaic and old that you've got to take the dust off before you can even read it. And then it's stifling the aspirations of the younger people. More people will surely vote for a party that is forward-thinking in its outlook, and so on.
I think party leadership is a matter which is a thing for the party members and the party organizations.
Yeah.
But I find that I had been working with party leaders like His Excellency the President Jaya Jawadara, and at the same time as party leaders like Honorable Sampandan. Now these people are fairly old people. When they were even now, Mr. Sampandan is a very elderly gentleman. At the same time, you have people like Honorable Andrew Kumar Disanayaka, who is a younger party, younger generation party leader.
You have constitutions, not only party constitutions that are tampered with, but there's also the constitution of the country where there's grey areas. I find that utterly unacceptable when the constitution of our country has grey areas.
Yeah, but the problem is the constitution is a creation by the members of parliament who have been elected, who have given the sovereign power to be represent the people, and that's an institutional arrangement that has been made in the constitution. Once again, it's in the constitution. Without a constitution also you can't run the country. So therefore the constitution says things, and then we have the three arms, the legislature, executive and the judiciary, and those people decide on their own tracks. They decide what ought to be done, and that's been done in that fashion. So you and I are only individuals in the game, and these institutional arrangements that have been created by the constitution itself creates the political environment for the country.
But very frustrating, don't you agree, Mr. Fernando, as fellow Sri Lankans? And frustrating when you see people hanging on to power. They hang on to power. In a company, the younger people would just leave the company if they found that their bosses are just hanging on to their jobs and not really delivering. And the younger guys would say, well, I don't want this, I'll just hop on board some other company, and so on.
Politics is a different game than
it's
a company.
Different game.
It's a different ball game than a company.
Yes. We had. Do you remember the 19th Amendment whilst it was all going on?
Yes.
There were attempts to try and stifle the media, and then the various representatives have been made, and I think our group was at the forefront of that change. It's all because we represent this thing for openness, and we didn't feel that it was fair by the people. So what I'm trying to say is that even the constitution of the country, let alone the constitution of the parties, being tampered with, various things being left out, and one's wondering why on earth the president has to keep going to the Supreme Court and saying, listen, what does that mean?
Supreme Court is there to decide on that type of situation, so he had gone into that.
Have they given a ruling yet?
Yes.
Are we going to be told about
No, it's in the under section Article 49(1)(b). They quoted. They said, the Supreme Court said in their opinion that the term of office of the president will be over on the 8th of January 2020. So that is 5 years of term. Although he was elected for 6 years, under 49(1)(b), it has been brought down to 5 years.
Personally, I feel let down about that because I voted for 6 years.
Yeah, that's a matter. But the Supreme Court is the legal authority who can tell that. They interpret as that. That's.
What about the president? Can he change the prime minister if he wants to?
He can, provided, to my understanding, I'm not a lawyer, first of all I must tell you, to my understanding of law, with a no confirmation motion, he can. If the no confidence motion is against the government, not against the Prime Minister, when the no confidence motion against the Prime Minister, I am subject to correction because I am not a lawyer.
Has the President asked the Supreme Court to clarify that point?
No, he didn't ask for that.
He didn't ask.
He didn't ask for that.
Because there's some speculation that he had asked.
No, he didn't ask.
Right.
He didn't ask.
You'd know about that.
I am sure that I did, but about the 5 years and 6 years I didn't know about it, but this one I am sure that it has not taken place.
Right.
This speculation was there. I saw some people thinking that it will happen, but it didn't happen. To my knowledge, it didn't happen. I don't think it had happened.
Right. Because you see, in the pre-19th Amendment, if you like, there was the word that the President could remove by letter.
Yes, correct.
That there is no reference to a letter now.
No, it is removed. It is removed from the 19th Amendment. It is removed.
Right, but it says otherwise. What does it remove by otherwise? What does this otherwise?
Otherwise is no confidence motion.
Right, that could be one.
One.
Removal by the undertakers could be another.
I respect the President and the Prime Minister both.
Right, I'm sure you do. But Austin Fernando, it's been absolutely lovely having you here, and thank you for being here on time and being here for a little bit over the 30 minutes as well. And we look forward to welcoming you onto our network yet another time, another program. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, and it was lovely to be talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's the way it was on the 9th of March 2018 on the first day of the Royal Tomian. Take care. God bless.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.